We've got two houses that have extremely low water pressure. It's at about 8 pounds and it should be at about 60 pounds. The only thing we know for sure is the main is on First Street. The meters are on the northeast corner of each of the houses, but we're not sure how they're tied together. There could be one line that tees, it could go to the first house and then feed the second house, or who knows how it's fed. After calling 811 and doing an emergency locate, we now have gas, telecom, and power all marked. Some additional troubleshooting that we've done is we've shut off both meters and we can still hear water running. We can hear the water running from the north house, not from the south house, so that's where we're going to focus our excavation. Also, when we shut off the water at the curb, the noise goes away. So at this point, we're fairly confident it's right outside that first house. In an attempt to narrow down the problem even more, I'm going to take this probe rod and see if I can find any muddy sections. Last week we had about 2 inches of rain, so the ground is moist but not wet. And unfortunately tonight at 7 o'clock I am unable to find anything. I'm going to use this method to check about 100 feet of the property, hoping to pinpoint a little bit more where our problem's at. Every time you probe the ground you get a little bit of dirt back, but I was not able to find anything this night. After all of your locates are active, it is very important before you start digging that you take plenty of pictures. This way there's never any confusion whether something was marked or not. The next day I show up with Trent, he starts probing, and in about 5 minutes he's able to find a moist spot in the yard. Since we're fairly sure we know where the issue's at, we're going to head to the curb box and get the water shut off. And with that, there's nothing left to do but dig. There was no way my mini excavator would have been big enough, so I had to borrow this one from a friend. After digging for a few minutes, we found two things. One was standing water, and the second was a gas line that was not marked. The water's kind of a good sign, because now we know we're digging in the right area, but unfortunately this gas line, which is unmarked, is in the center of our dig area. After spending 15 minutes on hold with the power company, they finally put in a work order, and they've got someone sent out. The same time we were trying to get someone from the power company to come out, there was another gas line in town that was hit. Shortly after hitting this unmarked gas line, the excavator bucket came up with a piece of broken clay pipe. Turns out, 40 years ago, a plumber thought he would be funny and leave some pieces of clay tile in the hole. And as I was excavating, I thought I hit the sewer pipe. These turned out to be junk pieces of old clay sewer pipe that were not attached to anything. Before we keep digging, we're going to make sure we probe so that we don't hit the real sewer pipe, and a few minutes later, one of the employees from the gas company showed up. After assessing the situation, he's going to take a drill into the pipe, and see if there's pressure. Not finding any pressure in the pipe, he gave us the go-ahead to cut it out. If we would have had to continue to dig around this, it would have probably doubled the amount of time we had to spend on this project. But we're able to take the bandsaw, get it cut out, and continue digging. We'll go down about 6 inches to a foot each time, hop in the trench, probe it to make sure we're not going to hit anything, and continue to dig. And in this next clip, you can actually hear the probe make contact with the sewer. It makes a very distinct sound. Now that we're confident we know the depth of the sewer, we can safely keep digging. Shortly after this point, I was able to find the water line. I then added some short pieces of PVC right next to the water line. That way I can keep digging with the excavator, and as long as the pipes don't move, I know it's safe to keep digging. Once we know where everything's at, now there's a lot of hand digging to get everything exposed. As you can see there, we have the cast iron sewer pipe. Next thing we need to look for is where the break is actually at. I'm going to have to do quite a bit of hand digging around this water pipe. Once I get stuff exposed, I'm going to have Trent turn the water on for a few seconds, and you can definitely tell we found our issue. Because of the frost line, it's very common for watered pipes to be around 6 to 7 feet down. I believe the break on the left was actually caused by our digging, but the break on the right had been leaking for a substantial amount of time. In order to get these valves removed, I'm going to have to cut off the bolts that hold on the riser. And on this second one, I'm going to have to do a little bit more digging in order to get the grinder around to the backside. Once we've got both of these risers out, we're able to take out the valves, get a parts list together, and head out to the supply house. And this is the point where it really started to rain. After getting 2 new brass valves, some stainless steel collars, and some risers, along with a bunch of different brass fittings to make our connections. And it's at this point in the day where I start to get wet and cold. Being that we're almost done, we're just going to power through, get both of the houses connected, and pressure tested. Once we confirm both houses have 65 pounds of pressure, we're going to start to work on these risers. Had to remove a little bit more dirt in order to get that second riser installed. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it was raining, and that created quite a bit of mud in the bottom of the trench. And you know you're a little bit chilled to the bone when cold water from the garden hose actually feels warm. But at this point, the only thing left to do is to clean up and backfill the trench. I was working on backfilling the trench while I made Trent do the cleanup work. Did as much as we could with the excavator, but we'll be back tomorrow with the skid steer. And I don't know how long the water had been leaking in order to eat away this much of this brass fitting. My guess is it was multi-year and thousands of gallons of water. But from the time we were first notified of low water pressure to the time we got it fixed was about 30 hours. And this was all of the waste that was created. But done with this and on to the next project.